The Amazon rainforest is breathing out instead of in. Scientists monitoring atmospheric carbon levels notice it first in the data. The forest, which has absorbed carbon dioxide for millions of years, is now emitting more greenhouse gases than it captures. This isn't a gradual trend reversal. It's a threshold being crossed, a switch being flipped. The entire system has fundamentally transformed. This is what a tipping point looks like in reality. Not the slow decline that people imagine. Not the gradual worsening that can be managed incrementally. Sudden, irreversible transformation. And it's happening simultaneously in climate systems around the entire world. Greenland's massive ice sheet is melting at rates that weren't predicted to occur until the year 2100. Not in some distant future. Right now, meltwater lakes form on the surface, then drain through cracks in the ice, lubricating the ice sheet's base. The entire sheet, 3 times the size of Texas, is sliding toward the ocean faster each year. Once it starts, it cannot be stopped. The West Antarctic ice sheet is collapsing. That's the technical term used by glaciologists. Not melting gradually, collapsing. Massive sections breaking off. The Pine Island Glacier, the Thwaites Glacier, chunks of ice the size of major cities calving into the ocean. Each one raises sea levels by millimeters. But they're coming weekly now. Those millimeters add up quickly. Within 2 years, sea level rise accelerates beyond all previous predictions. Not the gradual inch per decade that coastal cities were planning for. 6 inches in year 1, 8 inches in year 2. Coastal cities notice the change immediately. Miami's streets flood during normal high tides. Not during storms, regular tides. Venice is underwater more hours than it's dry. Bangkok, Jakarta, Shanghai. Hundreds of millions of people live in these coastal zones. Where do they go? The first wave of climate refugees numbers in the millions. Bangladesh loses a quarter of its landmass to permanent flooding. 40 million people are displaced. They attempt to move to India. India closes its borders and enforces the closure with military force. The largest migration crisis in human history becomes a military confrontation. Refugees die at the border, thousands of them. The world watches. The world does nothing. Because every nation is simultaneously facing its own climate crisis. Arctic permafrost thaw releases methane at catastrophic rates, not slowly as predicted, explosively. Pockets of frozen methane gas, trapped for millennia, burst violently to the surface. Siberia develops craters over a kilometer wide where the ground literally collapses. The methane release is devastating. Methane is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. Atmospheric levels spike dramatically. The warming accelerates beyond all models. Temperature increases compound exponentially. Climate scientists were tracking toward 2 degrees Celsius warming by the year 2100. We hit 2 degrees by 2028, then 2.5 degrees, then 3 degrees. The models didn't predict this speed because the models assumed linear, manageable change. But tipping points aren't linear, they're exponential. They're cascading. One failing system triggers the next in sequence. Agricultural collapse begins in tropical regions. Crops cannot handle the extreme heat. Wheat production in India fails completely. Rice in Southeast Asia fails. Corn in Central America fails. The breadbaskets of the developing world become literal dust bowls. Famine isn't a future prediction anymore. It's present reality. United Nations estimates 200 million people facing starvation within 3 years. Water wars begin, not metaphorical political conflicts, actual shooting wars. The Nile River Basin. Ethiopia's massive upstream dam controls Egypt's water supply. Egypt threatens military action. It's not an empty bluff. The Mekong River system. China's hydroelectric dams control water flow for Vietnam. Cambodia, Thailand. Regional tensions explode into actual skirmishes, then battles. Water becomes more valuable than oil ever was. Year 3. Heat waves kill people, not hundreds annually, thousands daily. Wet bulb temperatures. The deadly combination of heat and humidity that makes human survival physically impossible occur regularly in South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Millions die, not from slow heat exhaustion over days, from being outside, walking, working, existing. The human body cannot cool itself when wet bulb temperature exceeds 35 degrees Celsius. Internal organs fail. Death comes in hours. Air conditioning transforms from comfort to survival infrastructure. Cities in hot climates become genuinely uninhabitable without it. But air conditioning requires massive amounts of electrical power. Power grids, stressed by unprecedented demand, fail during peak heat. Rolling blackouts during deadly heat waves. People die in their homes. Elderly, poor. Those without backup power. Death toll, tens of thousands per summer. Ocean acidification kills the coral reefs, not slowly over decades, completely within years. The Great Barrier Reef. Caribbean reef systems. Southeast Asian reefs. Dead, white, skeletal. Fish populations dependent on reef ecosystems collapse entirely. Fishing industries collapse. Coastal communities that have lived from the sea for countless generations have nothing. No fish, no income, no future. The jet stream destabilizes completely. Weather becomes genuinely chaotic. Record droughts and record floods. Sometimes in the same region, same season. California experiences a mega drought while Washington state floods. Texas burns while Louisiana drowns. Crops cannot adapt to unpredictable weather. Plant in April expecting June rain. June brings drought, or June brings floods. Either way, crops fail. Year 5. Political systems strain to breaking point. Democratic governments cannot respond fast enough. Climate action requires immediate, drastic measures, but publics want action without personal sacrifice. Elections every few years prevent long-term planning. Some nations abandon democracy entirely. Climate dictatorships emerge, suspending democratic processes for the emergency. It's declared temporary. It always is. Migration reaches absolute crisis levels. Equatorial regions become genuinely uninhabitable. Not difficult to live in, uninhabitable. 2 billion people live in zones that now experience lethal wet bulb temperatures regularly. They move. North in northern hemisphere, south in southern hemisphere. Borders close. Walls go up. Military deployments. The global north refuses refugees. The moral collapse is as complete as the environmental one. Year 10. Humanity has adapted to perpetual crisis as the new normal. Coastal cities are either abandoned or protected by massive seawalls. Miami hides behind walls. So does New York. London. The walls work. For now. But sea levels keep rising relentlessly. Eventually, the walls will fail. Everyone knows it. Nobody admits it publicly. Agriculture has geographically relocated. Greenland is now farmable land. Siberia is farmable. Canada's northern territories are farmable. But traditional agricultural regions are desert. The global map of food production has been completely rewritten. Nations that were breadbaskets are dust bowls. Nations that were frozen are fertile. Geopolitical power shifts accordingly. Population is declining, not through policy, through death. Famine, heat, war. Global population peaked at 8.5 billion. It's down to 7.2 billion. Projected to hit 6 billion by year 20. 50 years later, Earth has stabilized, not recovered, stabilized. Temperature is 4 degrees above pre-industrial. Sea levels are 6 meters higher. Population stabilized at 4 billion. What if climate change hit the tipping point? You'd learn humans can adapt to almost anything, but adaptation has a cost. Everything that made civilization worth building, and you'd wonder why we didn't use the time we had.